You plug in, you watch the little battery icon climb, you pay maybe $18 for a fast charge, and you assume that's the whole business. It isn't even close. Most public EV chargers in America lose money every single time you use them. Not break even, lose money. And yet the companies running them are raising hundreds of millions of dollars and racing to build more. That contradiction is the whole story, and once you see how it actually works, you'll never look at a charging station the same way again. Here's the thesis up front, because it's stranger than most hidden business models on this channel. The electricity is often priced close to cost, sometimes even below cost, and the real profit sits somewhere you'd never think to look. Government-mandated pollution credits, real estate deals with the store behind the parking lot, and data about your car that's worth more than the kilowatt hours you just bought. Let's start with the part that sounds almost fake the first time you hear it. In states like California, Oregon, and Washington, oil refineries and gasoline producers are legally required to reduce the carbon intensity of the fuel they sell. If they can't hit that number through their own operations, they have to buy credits from someone else who reduced carbon instead. And here's the twist. Every kilowatt hour that flows through a public EV charger generates one of those credits, under a program most people have never heard of called the Low Carbon Fuel Standard. The charging company doesn't have to lift a finger to earn this, they just have to plug you in. Then they bundle up all those credits and sell them, sometimes anonymously through a broker, directly to oil companies who need them to stay compliant. In other words, the fossil fuel industry is quietly subsidizing the EV charging industry because the law forces them to. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's literally how the compliance market is designed to function, and it's public record if you look up state clean fuel program filings. For some networks, these credits aren't a side bonus. They're the difference between a station being profitable or a money pit. Analysts who've dug into the public filings of major charging companies have found that carbon credit revenue can rival or even exceed the revenue from the charging sessions themselves in credit-friendly states. Which means the swipe of your card at the charger is sometimes the smaller of the two payments happening because of you. You paid the charger. The oil company paid the charger. You just didn't see the second transaction. But that program only exists in a handful of states, so what's happening everywhere else, in the other 40-something states where there's no carbon credit market at all? This is where it gets into real estate, and it's honestly a more universal explanation for why chargers keep getting built even when the electricity math doesn't work. Think about who's actually installing the chargers you see at a shopping plaza, a hotel, or a grocery store parking lot. Increasingly, it isn't the charging company footing the entire bill, it's the property owner, because they've realized something retailers figured out decades ago with something completely unrelated: the gas station convenience store. Gas stations, as we covered in another video, essentially treat fuel as a loss leader to get you to buy a coffee and a hot dog with a 60% markup inside. EV charging is following the exact same script, except the wait time is the entire point. A gas fill-up takes 4 minutes. You don't leave your car. A DC fast charge takes 20 to 40 minutes. You do leave your car. You walk into the store, you browse. Target, Walmart, Kroger, and countless mall operators have started installing charging stalls specifically because a captive customer standing around for half an hour is a marketing opportunity, not a cost center. Some of these retailers subsidize the charger's electricity cost directly out of their marketing budget because they've calculated that the in-store spending it generates is worth more than what they lose on the power. The charging session might be priced at a loss on paper for the charging company, while the host site is making that loss back many times over in the drive-thru or the aisles. It's the same trick as the free parking validation at a mall. Nobody's losing, they've just moved the profit center somewhere you're not looking. And that's before you get to what might be the single biggest quiet income stream in this entire industry: demand charges and time of use arbitrage, which sounds technical but is actually one of the most brutal parts of running a charging network. And understanding it explains why some networks fail completely while others quietly print money. Here's the problem nobody advertises. When a fast charger pulls 250 kilowatts to charge your car in 20 minutes, the local utility doesn't just bill for the electricity you used, they bill the site owner an additional fee based on the single highest spike of demand that month, sometimes called a demand charge. If 10 different fast chargers on the same block all get used within the same 15-minute window on a busy Saturday, that spike alone can add thousands of dollars to a monthly utility bill, even if the actual electricity used the rest of the month was cheap. Some struggling charging stations have reported that demand charges eat up 30 to 70% of their entire electricity cost in a single site. This is the quiet reason a lot of early charging startups went bankrupt. They built the hardware, forgot to model this fee, and got crushed by their own power bill. The companies who survive have gotten smart about it. They install battery storage on site that trickle charges from the grid all day at low, steady rates, then discharges fast when your car pulls up, essentially smoothing out that spike so the utility never sees the huge demand jump in the first place. That battery buffer isn't just an engineering choice, it's a direct profit strategy, because avoiding one bad demand charge can be worth more than a week of charging revenue. Now let's talk about the pricing you actually see on the screen, because even that isn't as simple as price per kilowatt hour. Charging networks have quietly built the same tiered membership trick that gyms, car washes, and streaming services use. Pay as you go, and you're charged the sticker price, often around 48 to 60 cents per kilowatt hour on a fast charger, which can genuinely be more expensive per mile than gasoline in some states. But subscribe for roughly $10 to $15 a month, and that same charger might drop to 30-something cents per kilowatt hour. Sound familiar? It's the car wash subscription model in a different outfit. The network is betting that most subscribers won't use the charger often enough to make the discount worth the monthly fee, banking a steady stream of guaranteed subscription revenue from people who barely show up, while the heavy users who do show up constantly are subsidized by everyone else's inactivity. The parallel to gym memberships is almost exact, and it's a pattern worth remembering because you'll see it again and again once you start looking for it in this niche. Then there's a fee most casual EV owners have gotten hit with at least once and didn't fully understand: the idle fee. Charging networks now often charge you a penalty, sometimes 40 to 50 cents per minute, if you leave your car plugged in after it's finished charging. On the surface, this looks like it's about keeping the stall free for the next customer, and that's part of it, but it's also a straightforward revenue stream, because a network with limited stalls can only serve so many cars a day, so squeezing extra dollars out of the same physical asset by penalizing slow turnover directly increases revenue per stall without building a single new charger. It's the same logic as an airport parking garage charging steep hourly rates instead of a flat day rate. Maximize revenue per square foot of pavement, because the pavement is the scarce resource, not the electricity. Now here's an angle that almost nobody outside the industry talks about, and it's arguably becoming the most valuable long-term asset these companies are sitting on: data. Every time you charge, the network logs which car you drive, how much range you started with, how long you stayed, what time of day it was, and often your location history across every station you've ever used. That data gets aggregated and in various forms sold or licensed to automakers who want to understand real-world charging behavior, to utilities trying to forecast grid demand years in advance, and to real estate developers deciding where the next station should go. A single charging session tells a company almost nothing. Millions of sessions, aggregated, become a product utilities and automakers will pay serious money for, because it's the closest thing to a live map of exactly how, when, and where EV drivers actually behave. Information that used to take years of expensive surveys to gather and now gets generated automatically every time someone plugs in for a coffee run. There's also a slice of this business that's almost invisible to the average driver: fleet and commercial contracts. While you're paying retail prices at a public fast charger, the same network is often quietly running a completely separate, far more profitable business charging delivery vans, rideshare fleets, and corporate vehicle fleets under long-term contracts. These deals are negotiated in bulk, often locked in for years, with predictable volume and none of the marketing costs required to attract individual retail customers. A single contract with a regional delivery company to service 200 vans can be worth more in guaranteed annual revenue than thousands of random public charging sessions, and it comes with almost none of the unpredictability. This is quietly becoming the backbone of profitability for several major networks, even as their public-facing app and website make it look like their whole business is you and your Tesla or your Chevy Bolt at a strip mall. And then there's the government money, which deserves its own honest explanation because it's not shady, it's just underreported. Through federal infrastructure programs, including one called NEVI, the government has committed billions of dollars to subsidize the build-out of charging stations along highway corridors, specifically in locations that wouldn't be profitable enough for a private company to build on their own. States are handing out grants that can cover a huge chunk, sometimes the majority, of a station's construction cost. So when you see a shiny new bank of fast chargers at a rest stop in the middle of nowhere, there's a real chance the private company that installed it only paid for a fraction of the actual cost, with taxpayers covering the rest specifically to fill in the gaps the free market wouldn't fill on its own. This isn't a criticism of any single company, it's just worth knowing so you understand why chargers are appearing in places that make zero sense purely as a retail business. So who does none of this apply to? If you charge almost entirely at home on a level 2 charger in your garage, most of this entire hidden economy barely touches you. Home charging is priced by your regular utility rate, usually without demand charges, without idle fees, and without a membership tier trying to nudge your behavior. For a huge percentage of EV owners, especially anyone who charges overnight, public fast chargers are an occasional backup, not a daily habit, and that's honestly the segment of the EV charging industry that's the most straightforward and the least hidden, because it's just electricity, sold the same way it's always been sold. But step back and look at the public charging network as a whole, and the picture is genuinely different from what the price screen tells you. The kilowatt-hour price you see is only one thread in a business built from at least 5 or 6 separate revenue streams layered on top of each other. Carbon credits sold to oil companies who are legally required to buy them, real estate deals where the parking lot host subsidizes your electricity to get you inside their store, demand charge arbitrage through battery buffering. Any one of those alone probably wouldn't keep a charging network alive. Stacked together, they explain why an industry that looks like it's bleeding money on paper keeps expanding at a pace that outpaces almost anything else in transportation infrastructure right now. The next time you pull up to a charger and watch that price tick by, you're really only seeing the most visible corner of a business that's been engineered in layers, most of them completely invisible from the driver's seat. That's usually the pattern with places we assume we already understand. The price tag in front of you is rarely the whole story, and the real machinery is running quietly somewhere behind it. If you want more of these hidden business models pulled apart piece by piece, subscribe, because there's a lot more sitting in plain sight than most people ever stop to notice.